Hi guys, my name is Stephanie Cutrell, for those of you that don't know me. Sorry if I sound a little sniffly, I have a cold, so hopefully I won't cough too much. But I'm going to be presenting on the governess, or the figure of the governess, I should say, and just kind of walk you through, like, who became a governess, who employed a governess, what did she teach, because women only became governesses, with the exception of men, but they were teachers, like in a school setting, not in homes. Kind of her position with family and society, and kind of the important governesses in fiction that we can relate to. So I looked at an article called "The Figure of the Governess" by Catherine Hughes, and I also looked at a book that's called "The Complete Governess, a Course of Mental Instruction for Ladies," with a notice of the principal female accomplishments intended to facilitate the business of public establishments and abridge the labor of private education by an experienced teacher. So the title pretty much sums it up. It's essentially an all-inclusive guide of how to be a governess and what to teach. And I'll get to that in what they taught section. So essentially, within the early 19th century, England and Europe saw a series of bank failures and the war. So that created a welfare state, and middle-class families would normally send their boys out to school, and they'd go to school, but they had to pull them out of school so they could come back and work and provide for the family and help provide for the family. So governesses were middle-class families who sent their daughters to school to be taught to become governesses, and they would either teach in a school or they would go and teach in the homes of wealthy families. So essentially that's who employed governesses, were wealthy families of the upper class. And the lady of the house would hire a governess because she was too gentle to teach her children. Not saying that she was incapable of teaching her children, but she did not need to take on those responsibilities because she was an unaccomplished lady and she was running, the household. So the governess would come in, and since she was a working class woman, not as gentle as the woman of the house, and teach the children different things. So they were employed just like a servant or a nanny. Nannies took care of the children while the woman of the house, took care of her other duties. So then the governess would come in and teach the children. And being able to afford a governess was a symbol of status. Because it did, you did have to pay her even though she lived in the home. So the governess taught different things depending on the age of the children. So the youngest children would be taught the 3 R's, which are reading, writing, and arithmetic. And the older girls would be taught French, history, and geography, or I've seen it say geography or the use of the globe. So just knowing, where things are. If the girls were in their teens, the governess would teach them accomplishments such as drawing, piano, dancing, and how to conduct oneself in public. For the most part, the governess didn't teach boys once they became older, because the wealthy family sent their boys off to school. So she would only teach them for like the young ages, and then once they were sent to school, she didn't see them. So she wasn't responsible for their education. But the governess was responsible for the moral education of the children, such as, being able to read the Bible and understand that. And the governess herself was supposed to set a moral example for the children. So how she dressed, how she spoke, how she interacted with, other people, how she practiced her faith. And it's also important to note that at this time, most citizens in England weren't practicing Roman Catholicism. They were following the Church of England. So that was a really big thing that needed to be addressed with hiring a governess. She needed to be of the same religious affiliation as the family. If the governess was Roman Catholic and the family followed the Church of England, it just wasn't going to work out, because as we know from analyzing those two different sets of teachings, that they're different and there's some things that kind of rub against each other. So it was really important that the governess was of the same moral affiliation as the family. So And along with like what she taught, this book that I looked at, which I've uploaded to Blackboard, so you can definitely go and look at it if you'd like. It has chapters on the different things that the governess would teach the children, such as English grammar, history, arithmetic, geometry, natural philosophy, chemistry, astronomy, geography, botany, zoology, and accomplishments such as dancing and playing the piano and drawing. Some of these chapters are actually really interesting, so definitely give it a look if you'd like. But something that's really important to kind of address with the governess and her figure in society, she was a part of society, but she wasn't really, because she was kind of this like outsider or a floater, as I would kind of call it. They weren't employed for very long, depending on the age of the children, and they were constantly searching for work, and so they had to place ads in the local paper. So this is an example of ads that either families would place in the paper or the governess would place there to hopefully see, get a correspondence from families. So, it says to daily governess immediately, and it kind of outlines the different qualifications and almost like an old time like want ad for the governesses. So that's really interesting to look at. I'll upload that. I've uploaded that to Blackboard as well. Here's also another one. And kind of like go into detail of the family and what they were looking for, and the qualifications that they were looking for in a governess. So, but besides that, she didn't really have a specific place in society. She was working class. I mean, she was working for a living, but she was from a middle class family, so not necessarily in poverty or anything. But she didn't run the house. And she didn't have a household of her own, because a lot of governesses didn't get married because it was really hard to do so. And one of the worries of the women of the house that would hire governesses is that if they had sons, that the governess would marry the son and, get into that fortune. So it was highly suggested that the lady of the house hire a plain governess, or someone who's not gorgeous or, outwardly beautiful, like we saw Becky in Vanity Fair. Everyone just fawned over here, so that's unusual. But, she was considered a part of the family because she was teaching the children, and she wasn't a servant, but she was also mistaken as a servant sometimes. So there's always like this blurred line of where did her service stop, because she was living in the house and she had her own bedroom and everything, but she didn't have a sitting room, and oftentimes she'd have to use like the schoolroom as her sitting room, and she ate with the family, so being served by the servants caused a lot of friction in households. So the governess would try and smooth things over with that so there wasn't friction, but how things go. So it was very, very lonely for a lot of these governesses. They didn't have homes of their own. They didn't have families. They didn't have husbands. A lot of the time they traveled, great distances from where they grew up to go be employed, and so they could earn a living. And that was kind of sad. But should governess get married and leave her job, that was a really big deal, because it was next to impossible for her to go back to that employment. So, because she'd have a family to take care of her own. But on the other hand, she could teach her children as well. So, they didn't, governesses didn't meet a lot of suitable men except for by the families that they employed. And so getting married to someone who was of a higher class was really, really hard. So in fiction, we really see the governess character figure emphasized in Jane Eyre, which we watched a clip at the beginning of the semester, so I won't go too much into that because we're not reading that book. But, it's she was sent away to this school to learn how to become a governess, and then she went into the Rochester's family's house and taught the children, and then eventually it worked out for her that she married him, but through a long, drawn-out process of very sad events, and then she could be happy, but he was all disfigured and all of that. So, but the figure that, we really can relate to since we read it was Vanity Fair. Becky was a governess, as we saw. She was trained to become a governess at the etiquette school. And so she knew how to teach French and English and arithmetic and math and, drawing and dancing. And a lot of the times, in the novel, we saw that she took on these accomplishments a lot more easily than her lady counterpart in the novel. So the fact that she married one of her employer's families was very shocking, because that doesn't happen very often, and it's very shied away from, and that's why he was cut off. So she was desperate to move up through society, but a lot of these women were just trying to make a living. She sought to marry up, and that's why it's kind of the taboo. She's a criminal for trying to live above her station, and she came from a very poor family, and not poor family, but middle class family, and she was trying to move up. So essentially that's the figure of the governess, and I just thought it was really interesting, the different things that they would teach, and this book goes into great detail of the different subjects that they would have to teach. So definitely give that a look if you have any questions, and if you have any questions for me, you can email me or message me on Blackboard, and hope you guys have a great class. I'm on Media Site, so bye!